Hello, good afternoon or good morning, depending on what time of the day you're looking at this. My name's Nick Williams. I'm the managing consultant at Ashtons Franchising. And for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk to you in very small detail about some of the principal things to think about in franchising your business successfully. We have been helping companies for 40 years now, and I've certainly been doing so for over 20. So there's plenty of information here that I hope you'll find has come from experience rather than from what people think. In other words, this is real-time stuff. At the end of the seminar, my details will appear. So if you would like a copy of the slides, if you'd like to ask anything at all, you can ring me or email me. So, without further ado, the next slide talks about essentially why franchise. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Now, it would be stupid to pretend that there weren't disadvantages, and I wouldn't dream of masking that fact. If it were very easy, everybody would be doing it. If you take some time and you work carefully at it, it can be a very valuable way of growing a business. But if you do it incorrectly, it's a very quick way to lose money and become disenchanted generally. So five key questions to ask yourself. Firstly, is my business well established? Has it been tested? Can I go to sleep at night without worrying about what's going to turn up the next day? If you're running a business and you're running it smoothly, that's a first consideration. And ideally, you will have not only established it in your current location or in your current territory, but you will have also expanded it a little bit by employing somebody or going to a new area and repeating the experience you've already had, sometimes called piloting. Secondly, is the business profitable? By that I mean, is it profitable at the operating level as opposed to the overall bottom line level? Because sometimes people are constantly investing back into their business, and so it doesn't tend to show a lot of profit. But a franchisee does not have to invest back into websites, R&D, new ideas, because you do that thing for them. So is it profitable at the operating level? Third, is the business one which is consistent and is going to stick around for a long time? Or is it fashion and fad, like juice bars turned out to be, really, I think, in the 2000s? Fourthly, can it be replicated? Can you teach other people how to do what you're doing? Or is it like brain surgery, something that takes 6 years to learn? By the time they've learned it, they'll have run out of energy and they certainly won't have been able to get a living. And then, is it something that will work around the country, or is it specific to the area in which you live and operate? So is it proven, credible, profitable, sustainable? All these things I've said here. Now, the last piece there, interestingly, personal character and commitment. Do you as a person want to help other people to succeed? Because that really is a key factor of being a successful franchisor. If you're in it for yourself and don't take account of them, then you'll soon find that your relationship with franchisees will be challenging. They won't grow well because you don't give them enough of yourself. And it will be a failure for you, it will be a failure for them. They will have spent money, spent maybe their inheritance, maybe the hard savings of years, and it isn't right to franchise unless you're prepared to give people that full commitment. There are disadvantages, and people do fail. So when I talk about disadvantages, I often talk about the fact that people are concerned that there'll be a problem with people abusing their brand. And that can happen. We can't pretend it can't, but you can minimize the risks. You can minimize people taking your knowledge and going off and trading independently. You can minimize the risk of people not sticking to the system and making a mess of it and giving the brand a bad reputation. But you need to know that if you don't do those things, there's potential for failure on all sides. And so You might fail because you don't pay much attention to looking after franchisees in the first place. You might fail because you try to grow too quickly, and that doesn't really work, because without having adequate time to train up and support your franchisees from the very beginning, there's every chance that you'll struggle to develop them sufficiently before you go on to recruit the next ones. And if you grow too fast, that's what tends to happen. And then your first ones don't succeed. They get disenchanted. They start to ring you at night and complain, which you don't want. They start to say nasty things about you on the internet, which you don't want. So you'll be very careful about not growing too quickly. Secondly, you need to be careful to ensure that you've got enough money to make the journey and to do it successfully. We can readily tell you what it's likely to cost to franchise your particular business. And if you don't have the money right now, well, just don't do anything. Wait a year, get the cash together, and then have a go. Much better to wait than to rush ahead without sufficient funds to see you through the period of getting prepared, writing a manual, getting a legal agreement, getting your marketing capital together. And remember, you're still having to run your own business, so you mustn't overlook that fact. And then the third thing that can go wrong is that you just maybe don't take advice. It's not to say that we know everything, but we've certainly seen a hell of a lot. So be careful to make sure you get some input rather than ploughing on, believing that you can just read about it on the internet and you'll work it out yourself. Because experience has shown that people try to do that, mostly, not exclusively, but mostly do not succeed. Whereas they do succeed if they've got that proven, profitable, replicable business I was talking about, and that you have got a service or a product that the customer wants and will continue to want. You've got to keep working at that. And yes, you're going to need to put in place some good systems and processes by which to run the business, not only for yourself, but also for your franchisees. And it will be really important that you take time to train them, not just to train them up initially, though of course that's the first thing, but also that you have the time to train them and support them while they are developing. And there are 2 or 3 ways in which you might develop your business as a franchise. You might be looking at what we call a job franchise, which is usual with smaller businesses, often around personal services or education, children's education, where perhaps the franchisee is more or less going to be a sole practitioner. But mostly people will go for what we call a management franchise, which is where the franchisee will have a defined area, slightly larger than the sole trader will have, in which to operate, where they will first start off by themselves, most probably, but very quickly will build up to having people working for them so that they're managing a business, hence a management franchise. Or in the restaurant and retail sector, there is a model called a development agreement, a development franchise, one whereby a franchisee signs up not just for one location or store or restaurant, but for several, and will develop them in a distinct geographic area over time. That needs, obviously, a fairly good population area in which to be successful, no matter what it is. The reason we say involve a consultancy, whether it's us or another BFA accredited consultant, is that we will save you time. And it takes a long time to get ready for franchising, believe me. And you can certainly see some evidence of that in some video on our website where clients we have worked with make that point. It saves you making mistakes. It saves you going ahead and doing stuff which later has to be unpicked, a waste of time and a waste of money. And it brings you the insights that you can only get by talking to people who've done it, not just once with one type of business, but lots of times with lots of types of business. That's why getting some consultancy input can be so valuable. I can't run a seminar about franchising without actually describing what franchising is. And it's simply a legal relationship in which the franchisor, you, enable the franchisee to use your brand. And that means normally that you should have got the trademark, You should have got the registered name to yourself, to use your brand, to use your know-how in a distinct area, to start a business following the same systems and processes that you adopt. That's, simply put, the definition of franchising. And what you're providing them, what's known as the franchise opportunity, is a proven successful business that will give them profit and will give you profit. There's no point in doing this if your franchisees are not going to be turning over very much, and you're only taking a, let's say, a 10% management service fee or royalties. You might be familiar with it. You know, if they're going to turn over, let's say, 20,000 a year, and you're going to get £2,000 per franchisee, is it worth your effort? You might say to yourself. So there needs to be enough money in this to make it worthwhile for both sides. Otherwise, carry on growing as you are, I would say. And when we're helping people to franchise, we have a 3-step process. And in fact, the British Franchise Association requires us as affiliated consultants not to encourage people into franchising until we've done the first step, called on this slide the evaluation of the business concept. I see that as an engagement with you to look at your business, to look at your methodology, to look at how the money goes round, to work out a blueprint for franchising, a high level investigation, if you like, that says, yes, this business has got something about it. It is worth franchising. And these are the things that are going to need to be done to get ready to franchise it. Sometimes we do this first step and it takes a little bit of time before we're actually able to move into the next steps, because we make recommendations to our customer, to our client, that encourages them to improve on their business before they step into franchising. But eventually, when they're at that point, when it's ready, then we'll help them to put together the documentation they'll know. We're registering their brand mark if they haven't already got it, protecting their know-how, otherwise known as their intellectual property rights, drawing up the legal agreement, thinking about the training program, thinking about how we could administer this business, how it's going to run, what we're going to put into the manual. And the next thing, of course, is how to find franchisees, where to find them, what to say to them when we get an inquiry, teaching the franchisor how to recruit. So, the first step, as I said, is the initial thinking. It's the franchise business development plan. We look at what the package will be for the franchisee, what we're going to provide to them, what we expect them to do, what we will do for them, and what it's going to cost them. We'll work out the numbers. We'll make sure that it'll stack up. If they've got to invest £50,000 with you, but the business isn't going to generate enough for them to live and to recover their investment over the 5 years that the franchise agreement tends to run, then probably it's not going to work. Equally, we need to do the financials for you as the franchisor. How many franchisees can you bring on year? When does it turn from it being a fledgling business into one that's generating money for you? At what point will you need to bring in more staff? So we're going to look at that stuff. We'll look at, how adequate your systems are to support a network of 50, as opposed to perhaps the smaller business that you are today. Can those systems be leveraged up, or do they need to be redeveloped? Practical transferability talks about how we're going to train people. Can we train them? Is this something that's personal to the individual who was running the business? That's you, the franchisor. That doesn't mean it's easy for someone else to pick it up. Market differentiation talks about what's going to be different about your franchise compared to others that are already in the marketplace. What's the difference between your business and others in the business sector? Is there something about it that's attractive that will make a franchisee want to come on board? And we do a SWOT analysis. We look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the business and how they can be accentuated or improved. We look at the opportunities for growth and the threats to the business in its sector. And then from there, as I mentioned, we go on to the development stage, which is very much about detail. And have to be really honest, this is the hard work piece. It takes time, it is procedural, it does require a lot of thinking. And people don't realize how many of the things that come up need to be taken into account. For example, what happens if a franchisee gets ill? Who runs the business? What happens if they die? Just two small things. What sort of social media policy do we want to put in place if we wish to put one in place? These are all things outside most people's normal thoughts around franchising, which is fundamentally, let's teach people how to do it, get them running, and take some money from them. So we want to look at all of that. We know we've got to write manuals. We know that we'll have to develop out a training program with you. And yes, we'll need to write the recruitment documentation, which is the high-level document called the prospectus, and then the more detailed disclosure document called the franchise information memorandum. And we'll have to tie all these things together in a strong legal agreement that will enable you to control your business. Luckily, we are partly owned by a law firm called Ashtons Legal. We've been doing franchise agreements for many, many years for all types of customer, both for UK and international expansion. And so we can offer you a one-stop shop there, but we're very happy to work with any British Franchise Association lawyer who understands and has got a decent legal precedent. The interesting piece comes to the recruitment piece. Where are we going to look? What marketing channels? Well, of course, websites, your own website, social media, franchise portals, exhibitions, magazines, specialist industry publications, if you are in a specialist sector yourself. All of these will have a place. We have to determine where to put the marketing budget and how and when. One thing is for sure, you could spend a lot of money getting nowhere. So we want to really give that some thought. Then we need a system to receive inquiries, to monitor the process that we're taking them through, to know where we are in the engagement with the franchisee, so we don't lose sight of them, but equally we don't pressurize them. We need a profile. We need to know what skills, attributes, and key facets we want to see in our franchisee. Clearly, they need to be enthusiastic, hardworking, healthy, but there needs to be a lot more than that. Then we need to determine how many franchisees we want to recruit in the first year, and then what sort of budget we're likely to need to put in place to make that happen. And to be realistic that it does take a time to get your first franchisees on board. Anybody who is an experienced person in franchising will tell you that. But I can also tell you that we've had some great experience with clients, and as long as we don't have false hopes, we do get people running. And once they get running, a bit like a snowball going down a hill, they gradually pick up speed, they pick up size, and then they're developing a lovely business. And we talk about awarding the franchise to somebody. We're not selling them a franchise, as long as they've got a smile and a checkbook they're in. We don't want that, because you'll end up with the wrong people. We award it to the people who deserve to carry our brand, who deserve the right to represent us. Think of it in those terms. Would I want this person representing my business? And if you're not sure about it, do not grant the franchise. So when you're looking for a franchisee, you need to pick basically 3 key points around them, I always think. And so I've just put a few up here on the slide. And just to walk through them very quickly, lovely to have people who are entrepreneurs, but I don't want an entrepreneur as my franchisee, thank you, because he won't stay in the business. He'll want to do his own thing. He'll want to do different systems and processes. He'll go off and try untried things, and he will not succeed, because the successful franchisee is the one who follows your system, because your system works. Great if they're keen on eating burgers, but it doesn't necessarily make them a good franchisee. So keen on the business activity, no. Willing to change procedures to suit any particular moment? No, we want them to follow the procedures, because the procedures work if you stick with them. And it's lovely that if they see you as a good and highly respected company, they want to join you, but just to be with you because of that isn't enough. We want them to follow systems and procedures that are successfully proven. And secondly, we want them to be motivated by customer satisfaction and service. And yes, we want them to be team players. If they want to work long hours, fine, but we don't want them to work long hours forever. They will burn out, and that's no good to you or to them. And we don't want people running around creating systems to suit themselves. To franchise your business successfully is going to take you 6 months, I would say. And very much depending on how much you want from any consultant. You might just want us to do the feasibility stage, and then you're going to go and do your own thing. That's fine. You might want us to develop the whole piece, run up a marketing campaign that's going to recruit you 10 franchisees in year 1. That's what 50K is going to cost. Or that's what 50K is likely to get you. So we very much tailor our work to you specifically. And that's why I never say to people, here we are, we're going to do this or this for you. I want to listen to you, know where your skills are, what you want to achieve, and then put together a program that's going to suit you. So can I just say, if you want to be a successful franchisor, make sure that every franchisee is successful each time and every time. The 40th is as important as the 4th. Train them well, launch them thoroughly, continue to give them support and care. Certainly in the first 15 months, it's so important. And be the leader in your franchise network, because franchisees are looking for that. If they were so strong in themselves, they go off and run their own business and do it themselves, but they're not. They're good. They want to be more than an employee, but they want to work with and feel part of a business where somebody is establishing the direction. So in summary, know that it's going to take time, know that it will cost you money, and that it's very wise to take advice. And we will be delighted to help you on these details. Thank you very much.